is a conscious rapper, and above all, is an activist. He's the founder of the Conscious Resistance Network, which is an organization that fights and exposes corruption, corporate corruption, governmental corruption. And today is going to talk about localization and liberation and how to create conscious movement. Please welcome on stage Derrick Broze.
Hey everybody, you out there? Can I get this up a little bit? Check, 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 check. How's everybody doing? Hey, this is like the final 2 days here. I need some more out of you. I know you're tired. How's everybody doing out there? This is going to be my last presentation of this year's Envision. It's been a beautiful year again. And I'm so grateful to be here to share some ideas with you guys. Let me get a little comfy. I want to invite you to move in a little closer. Hopefully we're going to fill this up by the end of this talk. I'm going to focus on localization and liberation. And this is going to be kind of like a how-to talk for those of you who are here because you actually want to go home and empower your communities. Did anybody come here to actually get solutions and maybe go home and do something? Maybe this is more than just a party. Anybody here out there feel that way? Yeah, shout out to those of you who come to do more than just party. I appreciate you. Because see, for me, being invited here as an author and a journalist doing talks, right now I'm fulfilling my Buddha nature. This is the main reason I'm here. Yes, I like partying. Yes, I like meeting all of you. But sharing ideas and exchanging ideas and meeting you in person and hugging and smiling and growing the community of people who are looking at the future and wondering, how are we going to build a better world for the coming 7 generations? You're my people. You're why I'm here. So thank you to each of you who take time out of your day here in the jungle to come hang out for a little bit. My name is Derrick Broze. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. I've been living in Morelia, Mexico for the last 4 years. And I'm going to tell you about my journey as an activist, but again, more importantly, I'm going to share my experiences in the hopes that they might help you go home to your community and start building localized, decentralized networks, mutual aid groups where we can support each other and finally get to a point where we realize government isn't necessary. And that we don't need to rely on big corporations, that maybe we already have all the tools we need within our own communities, within our own neighborhoods, and within our own families. Maybe we just need to finally break down the walls of division and bullshit and come together and say, how can we build that better world we know is possible? Anybody down for that journey? Because I know that's why I'm here. So, as was mentioned, I do perform hip-hop as well. I perform under the name 33. And I'm going to do a few songs with you over the next hour, so I hope you'll hang out for that. I also want to mention, if you're interested in what I have to say, my email list is right over there, my books and shirt. We got a few of my books, which I'm going to talk about today, left if you want to come say hello. And I also want to mention, before I forget, for those of you who are going to be in Costa Rica next month, I will be back for a Costa Rica Freedom Cell retreat, 5 days, 5 elements. If you don't know what freedom cells are, stay tuned. But myself and my partner Miriam and some other amazing folks, we're going to be doing permaculture, organic food. We're going to be talking about community organizing. We got more of these flyers. If you want to learn more, check it out on the table. All right, so for the last 14 years, I've been living my life as a somewhat semi-nomadic activist, journalist, traveling the world, doing reporting, talking about stories and things that often get labeled as conspiracy theories or dismissed as crazy, but actually getting to the facts and sharing that with people. This has become my daily life. This is what I do for a living. I speak at places like Envision. I write books. I produce documentaries, all in the hopes of trying to empower and educate our brothers and sisters around the world, and most importantly, focus on solutions. What can we actually do about it? Not just talk about the problems, but what can we actually do about it? And it's been a beautiful journey that I've been on for the last 14 years. But as was mentioned, my website is called The Conscious Resistance, theconsciousresistance.com for those who want to check it out. And the reason I chose that name, the resistance side, you probably can guess, like activism, stand up to the man, right? What does it mean, though, to be the conscious resistance? Well, I'll just share really briefly before we get to the purpose of today, localization and liberation. Before I was on this path as an activist and a journalist and independent free thinker, I was addicted to drugs at 18 years old. And at 20 years old, I went to prison. And it changed my life because in that horrible, horrible place, I discovered meditation, I discovered prayer, I started doing a lot of healing of my individual trauma and realizing that, oh, the reason I was depressed as such a young kid, then that led to like self-harm, and then eventually that led to drinking, then eventually that led to taking ecstasy all the time, and then that led to crystal meth, and then that led to prison. In that space, 18 months in total behind Texas State bars, I started to wonder and ask, how did I get here, and how can I heal from this, and how can I do something more? Because I felt like there was more for my life than that, and I think it was what I'm doing now. So I share that to say, my work, we're going to talk about a lot of physical things. How do we get organized in our communities? How do we help educate our brothers and sisters to build a better world and build parallel systems? Because right off the bat, I'll tell you, I don't think politics is the answer. I don't think violence is the answer. I don't think apathy is the answer. I think building new systems, parallel systems to the current failing, broken ones, is the true answer to the better world. So that's what I'm going to focus on. But I want to make it clear, we can talk about building better systems, but if we don't do that other side, that healing, then ultimately we're going to replicate the same problems. It may take a couple generations, but if we don't do our own individual healing, our egos and traumas will reappear, and before we know it, we will become the same systems that we thought we were fighting. Does that make sense to you guys? So that's what my work, the conscious resistance, focuses on. And how do we heal? How do we educate? How do we grow? We can't just get out of the current systems and then go to some, the same thing. We have to create new systems and new ways of being and new ways of thinking. And I should have said this earlier, but I'm going to do my best to be coherent here. I have some notes, but ultimately I just sort of let it come out what needs to come out. And so I hope it flows well and you'll stay with me. And if I get off track, just bring me back. But if I could, before we get deeper, can I play a song for you guys? Yeah? We're going to do this first one a cappella, if I can remember it. What was the first verse? What was the first couple lines? See, she's always here. She's always got it. I'm never going to stop. All right, this song's called Rising. If you want to find my music, look up 33, the number 33ishere.com. This song is called Rising, and this is at the point of my album that I released last year called Transmutation, when I've gotten through the trauma, the drugs, and finally been able to claim the person that I know I am. And for me, 33 has a very symbolic, powerful meaning in my spiritual journey, and so that's why I chose that name. So this song is kind of just that reclaiming your power moment, right? We're going to do this one a cappella. The next couple ones we'll do some music with. Back to the place where it all went black. I lost myself for a minute. Now I see the truth in me, and it's hard to believe. It felt like time was just slipping away, like I'm stuck in a loop, same shit every day. There's better days ahead, I can feel it in my bones, but I need to find a way out and stop selling stones. Someone told me that we choose the life we live. Our souls knew the path before we're even kids. I wonder why my soul took the hard road. Of all the paths to choose, I chose the unknown, but I wouldn't take it back. Man, I'm never going back. I'm loving my life, no secrets to unwrap. I broke free of my scars and prison bars. I'll say it again, man, I'm aiming for the stars. What's left to do when you can manifest anything? There's nothing I can't overcome. It's my dream. I found the power deep in my own struggle. Was hiding from myself, living a double life. Got no time for death. I stared her down. Ate the pill, slit the wrist, even tried to drown. There's nothing you can say to hold me back. Say it now. 33 is here. I'm on the attack. I ain't no great white, but I'm out for blood. The sense in the air, the criminals up to no good. I'm coming for the ones who think they own the people. They work to mold the minds, tending to the sheeple. But we're the realization of the creator's vision. It's time for us to change the world. Let it begin. This is our time to design with our hearts. We're creating the world of the future, and I'm doing my part. Check me out at 33ishere.com if you want to hear some more of my music. We're going to do some more, because I think I'm the final workshop of the night, so you got music ahead. So I'm going to ride that wave into the music. All right, so as I said, this talk is about localization. We're going to start there. We're also going to talk about liberation. How many people have had this conversation or the thoughts about the importance of being localized versus globalized? And not to say that we necessarily have to choose one or over the other. Obviously, we're here, people from all over this beautiful world. We're making connections. But, really understanding that, for example, there's probably hundreds of nations from all over this beautiful planet represented here right now. And each of us, starting tomorrow night, are going to start going back to different parts of the world, going back to our jobs and our friend circles. But what happens then? What happens after the partying and after all the knowledge downloads and the exchanging and the hugs? Well, that depends on us. That depends if we actually go home and change anything in our own communities, in our own lives. If we just come here and we have a good time in the jungle, we take a lot of Molly, we take some mushrooms, whatever you do, and you have a good time, and that's important. It's important for us to have a good time. Remember what we're fighting for. I'm not saying don't have fun. But What really matters is what we do starting tomorrow night and starting Monday and starting next week as we make our way home, wherever home is. And for those who are here local, if you're just walking down the block, the same thing applies. What are you doing after Envision? What's going to happen with all this beautiful energy of thousands and thousands of people here who seem to care about the future of the world and seem to care about what happens to the coming generations? But do we always display it in our actions? Do we show it in the way we live our lives? Not all of us, and I'm not here to shame anybody or even to tell you how to live your life, but I'm here to say if we really want to build something, when we go home, that's what really matters. That's why I'm focused today on localization. Because what you do here, it's amazing. I hope we exchange information, we get excited and activated by each other, but the real work begins when you get back to your community. And I've been serving my community, and I do see it as a service. Have you ever heard the phrase, activism is the price I pay for being on this planet? I've always kind of enjoyed that. And you know, the thing about activism too is I think we're all activists in different ways. You might not be the kind of activist that's out there holding a sign. That's one type of activist. But activism is also being there for somebody, listening to somebody. Being a better human, I think, can be a form of activism. It's about the way you live your life, where you spend your money, the way you communicate with other people. You know, what systems you're supporting through your actions. I think that's all a part of our activism, right? So some of us are more active than others, but at the end of the day, I think we all display elements, or we have the potential to do so. And so since 2010, when I started waking up, as we like to say, I got very active in my community. I started being very concerned about things I was seeing in the world, whether that was, at the time, I think it was the Keystone Pipeline, then it was the Dakota Access Pipeline, and there was this police shooting, and there was this police thing, and then there was this central bank doing this thing, and it was always something to be upset about. And I started to get active right around the time that the Occupy movement launched. I started an activist community in Houston called the Houston Freethinkers, and for 7 years of my life, I lived and breathed the activist life. And I lived in an activist space where we had skill shares and documentary screenings and shows raising money for this cause or that cause, and we built community gardens, and we confronted the police, and we did cop watching, and we did protests, and we did marching, and we did every single thing you can think of to try to empower and reach our community. And for years, we were a force known locally. We were known by the musicians, we were known by the activists. I actually started to get surveilled by the Houston Police Department because of my work, and that sort of actually did begin a lot of my journalism, because once I found out, I was leaked some images from a Houston Police Department officer showing these officers sitting in a room that said the Houston Freethinkers, and it had a picture of me and a couple other people involved. And he said, hey, I just passed this along to Mr. Broze, let him know that he has a criminal intelligence division officer assigned to him. And at that time, we were building gardens and doing some really, really dangerous stuff there. But that began my journey. From that sort of experience, that led to my journalism and wanting to know more about this, and that's the path I've been on. But my roots really are in activism, and it's serving my community. Even I consider my journalism a form of activism, because my community needs to be informed, right? If we're going to make proper decisions, we have to be educated about the world around us. So to me, journalism is just an extension of that. But over the years, I've been involved in building urban farms, community farms, backyard gardens, front yard gardens. We did the approaches, we did the marches. I've been arrested for civil disobedience. We did, as I mentioned, skill shares and community meditations. And I recommend all of it. Do whatever works for you and your community. Figure out what doesn't work and then move on. I think that, for one, I know that not everybody has that kind of time or believes they don't have that time or energy, because it would be me and a few people involved in organizing these activities I discussed. And then we would get people who had day jobs, and they would come when they could, right? And you have people who are free on the weekends and people who got kids and come once a month. And so it's a community of all types of people. I'm not saying we all need to be on the front lines. But again, what matters is when you go home, what do you do, right? You can have the knowledge. I've been saying this the last couple years. It's not enough to be awake or aware anymore. You need to be activated. Because we can all be awake and aware and know the world's fucked up and go in some dark places and just watch it happen. Well, we knew it was coming. We chose not to change any of our behaviors or actions or think about any alternative solutions. We just watched it. And here it is, so let's all complain. Who else do we have to blame but ourselves? I refuse to be in that position personally. I like to be forward-thinking, and in fact, my ancestors taught me to be thinking of the 7 generations and beyond. And not only that, a lot of us understand this idea of the 7 generations principle, but sometimes we forget that I believe we need to look back with the 7 generations as well. The 7 generations who came before us, our ancestors, who had to go through blood, sweat, tears, and all sorts of other trauma to get each and us here. No matter what color, skin, what language you speak, where you're at on the planet, each of us our bloodlines, our ancestry has been through some crazy shit. Humanity has been through some crazy shit. So think about that. We're not only fighting for the coming 7 generations, our potential kids and grandkids and great-grandkids and beyond, people we will never meet, but who are 100% at this moment depending on us. The type of world that they're born into is dependent on what you do or do not do in these moments we're living right now. And in that same way, going back 7 generations, our ancestors are standing with us and waiting and hoping and praying and knowing that we are capable of rising up to the occasion and reconnecting to our roots and reconnecting to each other and putting aside the bullshit and finding ways to work together. So just take a moment to feel that strength. Not only the challenge ahead of the 7 generations before us, but the strength of knowing that we have 7 generations of our ancestors behind us and with us. That's real power. You guys know that? Hey, say it with me. We are power.
We are power.
We are power.
We are power.
We are the real power. Our ancestors, our roots, where we come from, we're the real power, not the power that they tell us. And this is why it is important for us to be localized. Going back to this point, community is absolutely necessary. And I don't mean kind of casual community, people you see with on the weekend, you'll go to yoga class or meditation, or you go out for a drink and you chat through various social media. I mean true community, people that you could actually call up today and know, I can count on these people. Like whether that's family, whether that's some friends. This is the type of localization and the groups that we're going to talk about today, what we call freedom cells. You can call them hubs, hives, circles, pods. The name is irrelevant. It's about building localized, decentralized groups. And I'll get more into that in a bit. But I believe we can't make it through the difficult times ahead. And I keep referencing this, right? I'm not trying to preach doomsday. In fact, I'm here to preach that this is actually a beautiful thing. We're alive right now. We get to decide where it goes. Like, let's make some noise for the fact that we're not passing on this to the next generations. I hope, have chosen to say, I'm going to actually be an active participant in the future of the world. Does anybody else feel that way? Does anybody else feel like this is the reason you're alive, to be here, to be a part of this journey? I know I do, and I take immense gratitude and just so grateful for that, to be here in this moment and to do something about what's happening. So, but I will, in a bit, allude to what I mean, what I'm concerned about in the future. And to get through some difficult times, let's talk about that for a moment. It doesn't have to be the zombie apocalypse. Anybody notice there's a lot of UFOs and aliens in the news lately? It's kind of weird. All right. Nobody notices. That's the weird thing. They're talking about UFOs and nobody even bats an eye. All right, so it doesn't have to be the alien invasion, the zombie apocalypse. It can just be a weather emergency. And next thing you know, your power's out. Did you think ahead? Did you prepare? Do you have a local community of people you can call on because you guys said, hey, you know what? We deal with hurricanes, or we deal with wildfires, or we deal with snowstorms, or we deal with this. Why don't we have a plan? Why don't we come together as a local support group, a freedom cell, and think about what we're going to do in these tough times? Like if the power goes out, okay, well, we've all already prepared. Our little group of 6 or 7 here, we're all on encrypted messaging apps that work even without the internet. Yes, those do exist. We've got ham radios. You know, the point is you actually have community, you have members to help support and be there. So I'll give one real world example. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and back in 2017, as typical, there was a huge hurricane that wiped out like half the city. And I'll tell you, whenever the government wasn't going to do anything about it, local activists stepped up. I mean, people literally getting boats and driving around boating around the city because it's all flooded and bringing supplies to people. You know, we started coordinating in our activist house a drop spot for supplies for all kinds of things. And then we, through our decentralized network, got them out to people who need them. These things are possible. We don't have to depend and rely on these systems that we've been conditioned to think are the answer and that without them, society would just fall apart, which is far, far from the truth. So having community, not only just in case of, bad things happen in the future, but having community, I think, is really key. There's also the other element of this. Does anybody remember what happened 4 years ago? Or what started 4 years ago? We were here 4 years ago in Envision, Miriam and I were, and I was like, there's something going around in China right now. I don't know what it is, but if it's real, we're probably fucked, because there's 10,000 people here from all over the world. But we went home and all the toilet paper was running out of the stores. It was a weird time, right? Yeah, I like to call those crucial years, Bruce, say it loud, COVID-1984. Yes, because whether you like to accept it or not, it was a very authoritarian time around this world, and a lot of people excused authoritarianism. We saw people locked in their homes, welled in their homes, having to get permission slips to go walk their dog 5 feet from their house. We had people fired from their jobs, coerced, and we personally helped people from all over the world who got out of their authoritarian countries to come to Mexico, because Mexico ended up being the only country that didn't mandate shots, didn't have quarantines, didn't have test requirements, or any of that stuff. So we helped people get out of Australia, the UK, Canada, and other places that you might not have seen it on your news feeds, because guess what? You can't trust Google and it's being censored. But there were some very authoritarian things happening. And the reason I bring that up is because I believe, whether on purpose or a byproduct of the various policies that governments carried out, like lockdowns, separating us from each other is a crucial part of an agenda to break us up and to keep us from talking and communicating and asking questions and figuring out how do we organize. And do you guys believe what's happening? Have you heard about this thing? No, if we're separated, if we're isolated, it's a lot more difficult for us to organize. Not only that, you have to kind of figure this sort of psycho-spiritual component of us only communicating even more on the devices, right? Just seeing people through Zoom, having to say goodbye to loved ones through Zoom, all this insanity, which I dedicated a whole chapter of my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, called COVID 1984, because I just wanted to document the insanity and make sure it was somewhere on the record, because it seems like a lot of people just want to move on and act like it never happened. But it did happen, and it changed and hurt people's lives. So community is key in that. During COVID 1984, Miriam and I did 2 tours. We did one of the United States and one of Mexico. We called them the Activation Tour. And we did 60 cities in 2 months in the US, and then I think 15, 20 cities in 2 months in Mexico. And we were driving around the country at the height of lockdowns, March 2021, something like that. And we were connecting with people, and again, this, whatever your opinions on that time period, it's kind of irrelevant, so stick with me if you're feeling a little funny about what I'm saying. When we were driving around the country, we were meeting people who told us, you know, before I had this local group that I'm connected to now, I was depressed. I was so alone, like I couldn't, my kids had nobody to play with. I was isolated. And then through our tour and through the Freedom Cell Network, we were able to help connect people at a time when they felt the most alone. Because I'll tell you, over the 7 years that I held activist meetings in Houston, the most consistent message I heard every single month when people would show up and discovered, oh my God, there's these people who are doing great things and I don't feel alone. I can talk freely for the first time. I felt so alone. I've felt so alone for so long. And if you haven't heard of it, guys, I encourage you to research. You notice I didn't say Google, because I'm not encouraging you to use Google. I'm encouraging you to use other search engines. They do exist and they don't track you. They're privacy-based, presearch.org, nomooregoogle.com. Check it out. So go do a search of loneliness epidemic. Has anybody ever heard of this? And this was already happening before COVID. There's some growing evidence that humanity, even though we're more interconnected than ever, actually feels pretty freaking alone all the time. And social media may be playing a major role in that. That was happening prior to the things we saw with COVID 1984. So I think community's been important for a long time, but that made it even more important, locking people down, separating them. So I just wanted to emphasize that even more. Get involved in your local community, do whatever forms of activism, physical activism, spiritual activism, mental activism. Again, it's not just about holding a sign and protesting. There's so many other forms that we can connect with people around us. One of my favorite forms that I think is a little more subtle is what we would just call info jamming. Sometimes people call flyering, we call it info jamming. So we go there's a music festival happening in downtown Houston. Let's print out 1,000 flyers about this particular topic we're concerned about. And a big group of us go out, and in a couple hours, we have fun, we meet new people. Other people are like, whoa, I care about this too. I didn't know you guys exist. Let's work together. The movement grows, right? Like, you have to get out from behind the computer every now and then, though, and remember that the world's here. And I don't mean just to come here and party, but to connect. Because I think most of you nodded your heads earlier when I said, is this the kind of crowd that cares about the direction of the planet and cares about the coming generations, right? Let's do a head count again. Who cares about where things are going? And who wants to actually leave behind a better world for these beautiful children right here? See them? Those 3 right there, they're all depending on us right now, right? So we all care about it, but what do we do when we get home? I'm going to be in your head. I'm going to be in your head for a week. Do something. You can do it. I believe in you. All right, maybe it won't be that creepy, but I'll be there. So it's just so important. Again, I started out by asking about the thought of localization versus globalization. It's important that we're interconnected. I'm not saying let's shut the doors and turn off to our brothers and sisters from other parts of the world. But what good does it do to have friends from 50 nations in the world if your hometown's going to shit? And if each of us did this, Because think about this, we like to talk about local. Well, what's the most local? Our own hearts, our own minds, right? So back to the healing element. We start by the healing journey internally. We collaborate, we work together, we empower each other. And if each of us go home and do that, because again, I imagine there's got to be 50 plus countries represented here, maybe 100 around Envision, because there's people from all over. And if even one person from each of those nations went home super activated and started getting shit done in their community, that would cause a ripple that we could visibly measure and see, like, wow, now there's a new farmer's market in this community because somebody went back and got really involved in their local permaculture scene. They started building urban farms and community gardens, and then now there's a farmer's market where there didn't used to be. And now people in this neighborhood, they actually have access to clean food. Now that's not gonna make the headlines, that's not gonna go viral, but that's real change, you know? The biggest changes often are not the things that are gonna be trending. Because us humans like to follow drama and trendy things, but the real work, you rarely ever hear about it. So, last thing I'll ask before we move on to the next section, how many people here are active in their communities in one way or another? And I'll let you decide what that means. But yeah, so we got some hands, we could get some more up here. Again, this is not about judgment. I'm not telling you I have the answers or anything like that. I'm just here to say, what can we do in our communities, right? Who feels like after this last 6 days or however long you've been here, like you've heard some really awesome workshops, hopefully mine was one of them, and you're ready to go home and look at your notes and see what can you actually do? Who's feeling like they're gonna go home and actually make some changes in their lives? Whatever, that's big or small, we all start somewhere. That's good, but you know what really sucks is we're the minority of this festival. Like, I've had more attended workshops than this, but even when there's 150 people out here, we're still the minority. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being over there. Like, I probably would be there too if I wasn't right here. But if we don't change anything, then we can come back next year, and I would love to come back. Please invite me back, Drew. Come back here on the village stage. But what's the point if nothing's gonna change? Just to come back here and pat ourselves on the back. Yeah, we got it all figured out. We're the conscious ones at the Transformational Festival. We're doing it right. But if nothing changes, then nothing changes. So I hope you guys are getting what I'm saying. What time I got? How much? Where are we at? You might know the time. 30 minutes in? Cool, perfect. This is the perfect time for a song. You guys down for another song? I did this one the other day, and I did it a cappella, but because I want people to hear it, and I know the music's already started, we're going to do it with music. Can I do it with music with you guys? This song is called Reflection, and it features the voice of Native American activist John Trudell, who is a huge inspiration to my work, and he passed on in 2015, and if you don't know him, go look online, search John Trudell, Take Back the Earth, and it'll change your life. All right, so this song's called Reflection.
We have to reestablish our identity.
Shit, 1, 2.
We have to understand who we are and where we fit in the natural order of the world.
Check 1, 2.
The people who have created
33.
this system and they perpetuate this system, they are out of balance. They have made us out of balance.
I woke up this morning feeling I had something to say. I got doubts on my mind, it's time to let them fly away. It's time to unlearn poison and heal broken hearts. Go back to the end, it's time for a fresh start. This is the place we can atone for our sins. This is the place where our hero's journey begins. A space between love and hate, where there's no escape from our faith. Rather than be irate, let's create, let's build the better world we know is possible. I've got no fear, cause we can overcome any obstacle. I'll stare all my demons in the face, I'll show you what's possible. I send love from my heart, I'm intuitive, not illogical. It's just that lately I've been searching for deeper meaning. I'm sick of drugs, booze, mindless sex, and criminal scheming. Feels like I should have more at this point in time. I'm talking knowledge, not money, I'm trying to feed my mind.
See, we are power. They deal in violence. We are power.
We are power.
They tell us they want us to believe that we are powerless.
I hope you hear these words from my mind, from my heart to your ears. We got one life. Let's do something with it. Open up all 3 of my eyes and fly to the heavens. During my meditation, I see my life in chapters of 7. I connect to my inner child to heal my wounds. I recall those I've lost to dope, gone too soon. My life flashes before me, a collage of joy and pain. I recall the highs, the lows, I swear I'm going insane. I'm trying to wrap my mind around this journey. Spent too much time worried about things that don't concern me. No more time wasted, not chasing my dreams. I wake up every day knowing this world ain't what it means. We gotta make our own path. We gotta find our own meaning, cause we can't be sure. We might be dreaming. All I know is when I look in your eyes, I see myself. I'm just a reflection of your impression of my higher self. Could it be that our whole reason for being, our existence, is a lesson to teach us over and over until we get this? You are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Shake off your chains, you are blind, but now you see. Grandfather, help us remember where we come from. Grandmother, walk with us until the battle is won. Yo, please hear these words of Brother John Trudell.
We are a natural part of the earth. We are an extension of that natural energy which is spirit and which is power. That is natural power. And just as it takes millions and billions of elements to make a blizzard to happen, or to make the earthquake, to make the earth to move, then it's going to take millions and billions of us. We are power. We have that power.
We are power. Say it with me. We are power. Hey, thank you guys so much. That song's called Reflection. I got a few more minutes with you on this talk. Was you guys cool with that? Mixing up the music with this? I hope it works with you. I just try to do everything I could do to, it's all about reaching people. So hey, seriously, if you know anybody who enjoys hip hop and is maybe struggling, send them my music. It is about suicide, addiction, depression, and overcoming those things and going to prison and changing my life. The album's called Transmutation. You can find it at 33ishere.com. I've got a little bit more, and I want to share a brand new song that I just dropped this week. So can somebody tell me when it's 5:40? How long I got, like 20 minutes? Oh, cool, I'm good, sweet, okay. All right, you guys still with me? Thank you for hanging out with me. I know there's a million other things going on. You could be anywhere else, and I appreciate you being here. So we're gonna move now. We talked about localization and liberation. This talk is called Localization and Liberation, Building Conscious Movement. So we're gonna move to the liberation part. Just shout it out. What does liberation mean to you? Self-determination. Sovereignty. Waking up. Anybody else? Liberation. What comes to mind when you hear that? Animal liberation. Yeah. What'd you say? Freedom. There you go. Okay, cool. So we have a general idea of the words we're talking about. Words matter. Definitions matter. We've got to make sure we're all on the same page. Liberation. Well, all the things we described, liberating animals, liberating our bodies, freedom, sovereignty, it's a natural state of being, I believe. Like the idea that we come into this world, we already are free, beautiful, powerful people. But then moments later, we're stamped, we're given a number, we're put into a system that we may or may not want to be a part of later in life. And we're taught that without pieces of paper, letters next to our name, a certain amount of money in the bank account, the right family, that often we're not free, right? But the reality is we are free when we choose to be free. Now there's various things in our world that are trying to impede and limit our freedom, and there's nuance there. But at the end of the day, we really are already free people, except that we choose to accept oppression in many different ways. We choose to accept a world that is very far from being, I think, what we would like it to be in terms of liberation. Now let me ask a question, because I think this is something that's increasingly important in this community here, in these intersecting communities. Is consent important to you? Like in your relationships, right? And I mean, I think most people understand that in terms of like romantic, sexual relationships, right? Like obviously good communication, things like that. But even beyond that, right? Like all of our relationships, we would like them to be consensual, right? Consent, consensuality, these terms are related, right? So you want your relationships to be consensual. Right now, we have a voluntary consensual relationship. You are choosing to sit here right now in the jungle and listen to me, and we're exchanging, there's some back and forth here. That's totally under your own volition, your own choice. And that is the kind of world that I'm after, that I'm trying to create. It's a philosophy known as voluntarism, keyword being voluntary. And this talks about all relationships should be voluntary and consensual. So you shouldn't be forced into a relationship with somebody that you choose not to be, whether that's a business relationship, romantic relationship. I think even family relationships. If somebody's treating you like shit just because you're blood doesn't necessarily mean you should stay, and deal with it. We should all strive to have relationships which are consensual, which are voluntary, and of course there's elements of respect and all that good things. But when we look around our world, unfortunately, many of the relationships that we've come to accept are not voluntary and are not consensual. One of those, probably the biggest one that we accept under duress, would be the relationship with the government. Because at least in the United States, and I think most of the governments of the world have adopted this policy, if you choose not to pay what they call taxes at the end of the year, that they claim they have ownership somehow over, then they could come after your possessions. They could take more money from you. They could eventually come with with gun and put you in jail, right? But to me, if I have a consensual relationship with this gentleman here, and we exchange, he wants to buy one of my books, and we agree on a price, why should the US government, where I was born but don't live anymore, have anything to do with that? But according to them, I should be filing paperwork on that and saying, hey, I met a guy in the jungle and I sold him a book. How much do I owe you? And it's just completely insane in a way that we wouldn't accept in any other way. That is a completely non-consensual, involuntary relationship that most people choose to participate in, and I mean in terms of paying taxes and things like that, because they fear what might happen if they don't. There's a phrase in the United States, the only thing consistent in life is death and taxes. It's kind of like people have resigned themselves to accepting. Yeah, we all hate it, but you got to do what you got to do. And then other people maybe operate under the false assumption that they're paying taxes and it's going to do good things, and in fact it's dropping bombs on other countries you've never been to and never heard of. So that's why I stopped paying taxes in 2008. Don't let that get too far. The recording's off, so it's good. I can talk a little more about it. But the reason I bring that up is because I'm about to describe the situation that I think is sort of looming and that could present a potentially dark future for us, and that I believe we need to have these localized and liberated movements in order to create something better. My book over there, which you can download for free at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to, theconsciousresistance.com/how-to, is called How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. And I gave a much longer talk about this on Tuesday, so I'm not going to repeat the same thing if you were here, but I just want to briefly kind of touch on that. My talk the other day was talking about navigating the future of artificial intelligence, digital identities, and digital money, specifically government money, programmable money, becoming increasingly known as central bank digital currencies. Has anybody heard this term recently, CBDCs? If you haven't heard it yet, you're going to hear it very soon in the coming months and years. 140 plus nations around the world have already made agreements to start digitizing their currencies and put them on blockchains or other various forms of government programmable money. And I'll just tell you a brief story. Bank of International Settlements, they're the central bank of central banks in Switzerland that run the rest of the central banks of the world. They're whatever heck he's called, CEO or whatever, he gave a speech last year and saying, we need to know if people are spending their money the right way. We need to be able to stop them if they're spending it the wrong way, right? So let's say that maybe you spend your money donating to a person like me, one of those crazy conspiracy theorists, and once the money becomes programmable, if the government says they don't like that, they could penalize you for it, they could freeze your accounts. And this is already happening in places like India and China, who are a little bit further along with these agendas. I told a story the other day about, you can look up plenty of examples, but one recent one is these activists in Hong Kong and other parts of China were trying to organize protests because of China's zero COVID lockdown policy. And they organized through the internet as good as they could, because China has what they call the Great Firewall of China, and everybody's on WeChat. You guys heard of WeChat? WeChat is like the all-in-one app. That's where your bank account is, your health care, your social credit score, your social media, your contact. It's one app to rule them all, which allows the government to know a lot about what you do, where you go, and in this case, they found out these activists were trying to organize a protest. So what did they do? Before the activists could get to the subway, they turned off their digital identity card, so they couldn't access. And since they created a society already where you can't do anything without that identity, you're effectively locked out, right? So they were able to disrupt the whole protest. That's just one tiny example. We could give endless other examples, but my concern here and what I write about in my book, and more importantly, what I promote the solutions to, the solutions I believe are going to be necessary, because we pointed at the beautiful kids here earlier. The young ones that are coming into the world, they have no awareness of the world prior to the internet. This is all just going to be normal. And whatever we allow, because we're just passively letting the big tech CEOs just run the world and assuming, oh yeah, we need 6G now, we need 7G, we need faster phones, we need the thing strapped to our skulls, now put it in my brain. We're just sort of, and especially if you're participating by buying the latest thing every time it comes out, you're sending a signal, oh, the people want this. So my point here is the young ones, though, have no reference point. And either they're going to grow up in a world where you have to have a digital identity to go everywhere, do anything, and that can be tracked and traced, it can be turned off. And in the United States, they're working on what they're calling mobile or digital driver's licenses. They're going to be rolled out in the next year or two. Digital currencies, CBDCs, artificial intelligence programs connected to facial recognition. This is nothing that I'm saying is fantasy. This is already happening in parts of the world. It's being tested. And in the United States, for example, if you flew here from the US, you probably saw the little pad that they try to get you to scan your face with. It's not mandatory. You can say no. They won't tell you, but just step aside, don't step in front of it, and just hand them your passport. But they're already testing it in all international terminals in the United States. Within the next 2 years, you won't be able to fly without scanning your face. So I'm just giving you some brief examples. Like I said, a lot of my journalism has focused on studying and understand digital technology, digital surveillance tools, and what it means for the future of privacy and liberty. And I'm telling you guys, it doesn't look good. It's not looking good, and it's right here in front of us. We're at 2024. I'm not talking 10, 15, 20 years down the line. I'm talking like we're here today, and these tools are rolling out. In some voluntary ways, like the people are embracing it, and other ways, government programs, mandatory IDs and stuff. So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. We're born into a world, a child comes into the world, gets a social credit score, and in the next few years we'll get a digital identity and a digital wallet that'll hold their carbon credits and how much they're allowed to drive that week if they haven't used too much carbon, and all these other things that you could say, hey, that has some benefits, but there's also the other side. And for me personally, I started with talking about voluntarism earlier. I want all relationships to be voluntary. I am a vegan. I do care about the environment, and I'm a permaculturist, and I ride bikes, but I would never ban cars. I would never ban meat. I would never say I have a right to tell you, or the government has a right to tell you how to live your life and how you should do it. I would rather we create voluntary relationships. We come together and have discussions and say, hey, you know what? I'm not a vegan, but let's talk about it. Let's see how we can, get together and have that dialogue instead of saying, Big Daddy, Mommy, government, or whatever is going to run things, and it's somehow going to work out great because it always has throughout history. It's never become authoritarian, especially when we give them technology that never had before. It's going to just work out like none of the movies are going to come true. It won't go wrong. So that's kind of the vision, and it's not a far-off vision. This is what I write about. This is what I discuss in my book, and I talk about the solutions. We have arrived at the solutions. How am I on time? 10 minutes. All right, we're going to speed up here. Freedom cells. I sort of touched on this earlier, but I want to invite all of you guys to go to freedomcells.org. Freedom cells, C-E-L-L-S, like the cells in your body. Every cell is unique, individual, and powerful, but it's also part of the larger collective that is you, right? So every cell is doing its own job, but it's also this bigger network. And in that same way, like I was talking earlier about the importance of localization and building local mutual aid groups, we call them freedom cells. You can go to freedomcells.org. You can sign up to create a free profile. It's not social network meant to post your recipes, your pictures of your cats, or your favorite memes, or to discuss politics. It's specifically for people who are going to go home tomorrow and Monday and are going to be like, oh, I'm back alone. I don't have anybody in my local community. I want to do these ideas, but I'm just one person. So you free profile, you put what your interests are, your skills. Then you go to the members map and you say, show me everybody within 10 miles of my house. And you'll see all the people who've joined. We have 42,000 people I think we just passed this week. I've been promoting this idea since 2016, and it's been growing. COVID-1984 was our biggest gift because, like I said earlier, a lot of people felt very alone, and they used our website to find each other in a very dark time. You can also search the cell map, and it'll show you all the groups that exist in your area. And here's the other key thing. If you go check it and you're like, oh, this sounds really awesome, but there's nobody in my area, we nominate you to start the Freedom Cell in your area. Remember, it's not enough to be awake. You got to be activated. You're going to have to take some steps. I'm sorry to tell you guys, the solutions don't involve just pressing a button every 4 years, or throwing a brick through a window, or sitting at home and being apathetic. The solutions actually involve us changing our lives, changing our behaviors, and doing things. I know it's disappointing. We actually got to do some shit, but that's why we're here, and I think that's exciting, honestly. So this concept that I talk about in the book, it's called Exit and Build. The idea is that we recognize that there are what I would call slavery systems being built and that already exist, and that if we stick with them, the future of humanity doesn't look good. But the idea would be exit from systems that you recognize do not align with your values and principles. I mentioned earlier I don't have a relationship with the IRS. Well, that's because that system doesn't align with my values, so I choose not to play their game. I also, I don't have a bank account. I don't have a cell phone that I use regularly. I have a privacy phone, the Above Phone, abovephone.com. That's my buddy's company. He sells de-Googled, privacy-based phones. No Google Maps. You got organic maps. You got Magic Earth. Alternatives to everything you're using. Again, no more Google.com. No more Google.com. privacytools.io. Both of those are great resources. So the idea would be you exit from slavery systems and you build new ones. And since I'm not a technologist, I don't know how to build the next phone, but I have a friend who does. So then if you can't build it, you support those who are building it. I think this is the real answer. Again, it's going to take real work. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take generations. But that's why we have to start now, because you see all the beautiful kids running around, like I said earlier, they are 100% depending on us. You see that beautiful young one right there? Like, she's about to go in there and kick some ass with their hula hoop and just have a great time. But the world she's going to have in the next 10 years depends on what we do when we go home. So just remember that when you get home. Like, we have to actually take some steps. Let's exit from slavery systems. Let's build new ones. I think the answer is building parallel networks. And I know my time's running down. I want to get to this song.
Derrick, you have 15 minutes.
Oh, shoot! I got even more time. Perfect. All right, well, then I won't rush this last part because it is important. Good. You guys see how my brain starts working really fast? Sorry about that. I'll slow down. Number one complaint of all my talks: you talk too fast. All right. There's just a lot in here, and it just starts going. Okay. All right, cool. So building parallel systems, I really think this is key. I call it exit and build, but I was inspired by the philosophy of agorism, and it's also known as counter-economics. And if this is all kind of glazing over, the book's there, download it, read it, you'll get more. But my point here is, there was a man named Samuel Konkin, who actually, his 20th anniversary of his death just passed. He died in 2004. He was active in the students' movements in the United States in the 60s, and he saw, Vietnam War. He saw a lot of the really powerful things we read about then. And he came to the conclusion back then in the 60s, late 60s, going into the 70s, that politics wasn't going to be the answer. He could already clearly see the failings of that. And a lot of the people who were involved in that movement that he was with ended up starting the American Libertarian Party, which has gone very far from what the original intention was. They basically were like, essentially anarchists. And this man, Samuel Konkin, he said, look, if we're not going to use the political machine, and if violence is immoral and violence isn't right, because again, if we want consensual relationships, it's not right for me to use violence on him and say, hey, you're not vegan, let me force it on you. Or people's favorite trick, okay, I won't use the violence directly, but I'll go vote for somebody and then they'll force it on you. It's still violence, even if you take the gun out of the equation. Just because you're voting and somebody else is doing it, it's still violence. So if we remove those paths, what do we have left? Most people would say, again, there's nothing. It's just apathy, right? We'll just watch the world burn. But in fact, and this is where I kind of relate it to the Buddhist middle path, Konkin actually said the answer is to take our money out of their systems and to focus on what he talked about, the black and gray markets, basically building the parallel economy. And he died before Bitcoin and cryptocurrency were around, and I have many problems with Bitcoin as it stands today, but when it was originally out, and the original intention was to create a system that could make the central banks irrelevant, so that we could have a free form of exchange without government, without taxation. That was the original intention. So Samuel Konkin was talking about that. And unfortunately, and here's why we got to take care of ourselves, he died very young because he didn't take care of himself, and he's not here to see it. He's not here to see that so many people now recognize that the answer is not going to be found in politics, that instead we have to build new systems. We have to try to, instead of competing directly with them, and instead of trying to fight them within their system, which I think, as John Trudell just amazingly has illustrated in some of his talks, if you play within their sandbox, you're still playing by the rules. I mean, they'll let you do anything within that box. You can throw bricks through windows, you can march, you can protest, you can vote, you can do all that. That's all fine. They know how to deal with that. But the moment you say, you know what, we're not going to play that game anymore. We're going to step away and just focus on how to build our own world. And we're going to create a decentralized network of communities and individuals who are growing their own food, who are exiting from the banking system, and because they recognize that the banks and the taxation funds killing people in other parts of the world where bombs are dropping literally this week. Yeah. When we recognize that we don't want to be a part of those systems and we choose to take concrete action, we put our energy into building new systems. And so a lot of my work is greatly inspired to Samuel Konkin. I just always try to pay tribute to him, and I encourage you to learn more about that. But that's in my books if you want to learn more. And I'll bring it back now to voluntarism for those who were here earlier. I was talking about the importance of voluntary and consensual relationships. We're going to build new systems. This is what the rest of my life is going to be focused on. We bought land in Mexico last year. We're building an intentional community. It's called the Conscious Agora, theconsciousagora.com if you want to learn more. Because we want to be an example, a living example of these ideas and these values. We're building a voluntarist community that uses permaculture, that uses nonviolent communication, and that works together to be an example of this ideal, to inspire and to work with other people. And I think this is the real answer to build. And I mean, not to say we should just abandon the cities, but I do think in the next 5 to 10 years, you will not have a semblance of what we recognize as privacy as smart cities and other things like that are increasingly built. They're going to tell you it's convenient, and it will. In some ways, it will be convenient. But ultimately, you'll be sacrificing privacy, and in the long term, I believe, your freedom to have these conveniences. So just be aware that they will sell the technocracy under the guise of entertainment and under convenience. But you know, that's the devil lurks in the details, let's just say that. But as we're building these new systems based on voluntary relationships, we bring it back to the conscious resistance. And in my first book, the Conscious Resistance Trilogy, there's a phrase we say, revolution without healing is a recipe for disaster. And what I mean by that is that if we only focus on building the new systems or confronting the politicians or the corporations or doing those things, but we don't do that internal work, what I call our own internal tyrant, our doubts, fears, insecurities, and limiting beliefs that have the potential to hold us back from being the people that we need to be at this very moment. If we don't do that work, then again, I believe within a generation or two, we will cycle back and become the very thing that we believed we were trying to oppose. So as we build new systems, we need to make sure that we're incorporating new ideas of how we communicate to each other. How's your relationship with yourself and your self-talk? And I say this as somebody who has struggled with, as I mentioned earlier, suicide and depression my whole life and still does battle, the self-worth sometime. But I recognize that the more I work on my healing, and the more you work on your healing, and the more we encourage each other, as we're building these new systems, we will make sure we're serving those 7 generations of our ancestors and the 7 generations coming in front of us. So, does that make sense to you guys? All right. I think I got time to do a song in just a moment, but I want to remind you guys again, for those who are going to be in Costa Rica next month, if you want to hear more of some of my ideas and how to get organized, we're doing a 5-day retreat, Costa Rica Freedom Cell Retreat. We got flyers on the table. Back there, the table is my lovely partner, Miriam. We got books, we got shirts. Come talk to me. Sign up on my email list. Let's get to know each other. My whole goal in being here, as I said earlier, to come to Envision Festival is to connect with you. This is the reason I'm here. I'm going to go enjoy the music later, but it would mean more to me than anything to connect with you guys right now, because this is the reason I came, and because you guys raised your hand and said you actually care about the future of the world. So you're my people. So I would love to get to know you more. My website's theconsciousresistance.com. I'm a completely independently funded journalist, investigative journalist. I encourage you to check out my books, my documentaries, and see what I'm about. And let's build a better world together, guys. Can we do my affirmation real quick before we do this song? This is on our shirts. This is an affirmation I used when I was in prison to get me through some tough times. If you hear my voice and you resonate with this, repeat after me. I am powerful.
I am powerful.
Let's do it one more time. They got to hear us back there. I am powerful.
I am powerful.
I am beautiful.
I am beautiful.
I am free.
I am free.
All right, guys, get up for me. This is my last song, brand new. Just dropped this week, and it's a little bit more bassy, a little more dancey. It's a short one, but come up this stage with me. Come on, let's do this. This is called Reset Your Mind / Berserk, and this is the first time I'm performing it, so let's do it. Can we turn this one up a little bit? Check 1, 2, 33. Come up here, my friends.
Walking through the door, and it's time to get to work. I came to make some noise and show you what's berserk. All my people rising, yeah, we're rolling in abundance. All our haters failing, no coming back from this. Walking through the door, and it's time to get to work. I came to make some noise and show you what's berserk. All my people rising, yeah, we're rolling in abundance. All our haters failing, no coming back from this. I'm rising to new heights, and I can't be stopped. You're coming with me, cause together we on top. We got the keys to the doors that they won't unlock, and we're freeing all the minds waiting for the truth to drop. Sever the main vein, cause that's the method of control. Smash the TV screens, but don't forget the internet trolls. 5th generation warfare to ensnare your mind. We're stronger than this, we can win, this is our time. Walking through the door, and it's time to get to work. I came to make some noise and show you what's berserk. All my people rising, yeah, we're rolling in abundance. All our haters failing, no coming back from this. Walking through the door, and it's time to get to work. I came to make some noise and show you what's berserk. All my people rising, yeah, we're rolling in abundance. All our haters failing, no coming back from this. Reset your mind and raise your vibration. We've had enough of this spiritual stagnation, and now we're dealing with inflation. One nation under blackmail, yeah, we're falling for temptation. All these politicians controlled by the desires, while they try to outfit our brains with hard wires. Neuralink, sever the link, we're on the brink. What do you think? Can we rise to new heights and take flight? Walking through the door, and it's time to get to work. I came to make some noise and show you what's berserk. All my people rising, yeah, we're rolling in abundance. All our haters failing, no coming back from this.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. That's it for me.